We look like this. So usually you have one single spot with your headquarters and everybody's there. In our case, we are all over the place. And we love to work without being synchronized in terms of time. So I can ask something to somebody, and that somebody is going to reply in the next few hours because of the time zone, because of the other things and other priorities. We also have an open vacation policy. So everybody can go on holiday when they like. They can stay away for a day or 2 days or 3 days. But there is no summer holiday, winter holiday, and nothing in between, right? Everybody can go on holiday at any point. So what happens? That sometimes you just send a message, you ask a question, and then you feel like, when is going to come back the reply? And you feel a bit like that, just waiting for things to happen. And the very first thing that you get when you get employed, I still remember the very first day, you get access to a blog, guess what? And that blog is called the field guide that tells you how to do things in this new company that you just joined. And the big title of that field guide is Welcome to the Chaos. Because when you have a distributed network of colleagues all over the world, that they do things in a synchronous way, and they can be on holiday whenever they like, things start to get a little chaotic. And things are really chaotic when you are in charge of growth methodologies. They are required to be very strict. And we're going to see what I mean with that. So, first of all, what is this growth that I'm responsible of? It's this, optimizing the product market fit. So I'm in charge of a few products, and for those products, I need to make sure that we are optimizing the product market fit. So we need to make sure that the product comes out well, so that works, but also that covers all the opportunities that the market offers. If people are going to be happy to use it, if people are going to talk about it, if people are going to share to their friends, if people are going to come back after they use it once. All of these things, they need to be measured, they need to be optimized, they need to be analyzed, and they need to be improved. And this part requires to be very strict. So in order to do that, one of the type of tools that I use every day is business analytics. Anyone is familiar with business analytics? Anyone? A few of them. Anyone is familiar with Google Analytics? All of you? Right. So you all work, I mean, you know Google Analytics, but you don't know business analytics. Interesting fact is that Google Analytics is a subset of a business analytics. So imagine to do everything you do with Google Analytics, so visitors, sessions, but you do that on every single metric of your business. So you can also check revenue, you can also check your promoter score, you can check many other significance in your results. Or that, in case of usability testing, you're not compromising the outcome because you're giving away too much information to the people that are testing, or the opposite, you're not giving enough context and people don't know what to do, so your product is good, but they simply didn't get exactly what you wanted. So in order to do that, you really need to be strict. And that is needed in order to make data-informed decisions. So what happens? You have a strict requirement for being very solid in your methodology, and a company that at first looks all over the place. Because actually it is all over the place, but also because the internal flows are very complicated. And growth methodologies, there's a lot of science behind. You cannot just change that. That part needs to stay as it is. What you can change are a little bit of people habits, but most of all, you can change your attitude towards those habits. So this is the team I belong to. Starting from the left, we have Bree, which is the team lead, and she lives in San Diego. Mike is in Virginia. Dan is in Pennsylvania. Ran in the bubble is in Israel, and I live in Vienna. The 5 of us, we cover something like 20, 22 hours every day of day span. Because Ran wakes up, then I wake up, then East Coast wakes up, then West Coast wakes up. And altogether, we cover something like 20, 22 hours when we're not traveling. But that also means that when Ran wakes up, Bree just went to sleep. And that also means that when I wake up and I want to talk to Dan or Mike, there are 6 hours gap between us. And most of the activities that we do, being a design team, needs to be done sometimes together, sometimes not. So we had to organize our team in order to function and to be optimized for this super long time span. Most of the teams at Automattic have this to deal with. They cannot simply say, oh, well, tomorrow I go to the office and I'm going to talk about this with the others and see what they say when they have a problem. They need to say, well, now I need to put this problem out, so when I go to sleep, someone else can look at it, and maybe when I wake up, there is a solution for this, in order to keep the wheel spinning. These are 3 things that we recently did, or actually the first 2 are 2 things that we do every single week, and then we're going to see a little bit of the meta projects. There are examples of methodologies that we had to come up with in order to keep strictness in the approach, but allow the chaos to be fully overcome. So the first one is weekly sprint. I'm sure that we're not just the only ones. How many of you do weekly sprints with their teams? Right, so you know, many of you know what I'm talking about. So the weekly sprint is extremely simple, yet extremely powerful. And the many of you, again, how many of you do weekly sprints? Right. How many, no, keep your hands up. So how many of you that do weekly sprint think that just talking about weekly sprint is stupid because they're so simple that everybody should do it, or why the hell are you there with a microphone and talking about it? It's a weekly sprint. The name itself tells us, right? Wrong. As soon as you explain other people that they can work in weekly sprint, I experience to have people like, wow, I never thought about that. And I'm not talking about, traditional industry where people, they're building a car and you cannot build in a week, so everything that is below 2 years cannot be imagined. I'm talking about startups. I was consulting startups and I was telling them like, do you have a weekly sprint? No, we do iterations in 3 months. What? 3 months you open 3 companies and you shut down 6 of them. So, but let's see what a weekly sprint in a distributed company across 6 time zones look like. How many of you are on Trello? Okay. Any board works. So never think about tools. It doesn't matter if Automattic works on P2, Slack, and Trello, and others. Any board works. So we have the current sprint that lists things that needs to be done this week, things that we're working on right now, things that are done for this week, and the cheat sheet. Then we have another column there that is cut off, which is stuff for the future, but never mind. Out of this is so simple that I somehow feel embarrassed to explain it, but there are a couple of things that maybe can be picked up. So things, they go this way. You take something from here, you just do it, goes, well, while you do it, it's here, and when it's done, goes here. And at the end of every week, we just do a recap, and we archive. But this was the groundbreaking thing. At some point, we realized that the only way to have a weekly sprint is to give us a framework of rules on how to conduct it. The first rule is we can actually afford not to complete things. So if something is not done by the end of the week, nobody's going to get fired, nobody's going to get blamed. There is not even a long discussion about it. It didn't happen. Let's just find out why. So we started and we realized that, well, most of the times things were not completed because we didn't plan right at the very beginning of the week. And, okay, so you're not doing the thing we agreed. Well, we agreed for him to just cross this running. Not saying anything else about it, but no. So when we realized the reason behind not completing tasks, we realized that the problem was in the planning. Guess what? And what was the main problem in the planning? That you try to bite an elephant. So you want to eat an elephant, and you start biting into the elephant. You cannot eat an elephant. There's no way. The only way to eat an elephant is first you have to kill it, but then you have to chunk it down in little pieces. So the rule is there are only 3 types of cards that are allowed, and everything that is not fitting in those 3 cards is not allowed. The 3 cards are tasks that they last less than 2 hours, or they're estimated to be smaller than 2 hours, tasks that are smaller than 1 day, and tasks that are smaller than 2 days. Everything that is more than 2 days needs to be broken down in smaller pieces. And check the names: extra small, small, and medium. We could have done like small, medium, and large, right? No, because otherwise something that is large can become even larger. The idea is, as soon as you look at this, you need to understand that things need to be small and do it, not large and hope. What happens now? Well, now we have a meeting at the beginning of every sprint. We just discuss things that were done or not done the previous week. We just rearrange, and at any moment is responsibility of the 5 of us to have this always up to date. And this, again, sounds extremely trivial and sounds really stupid to say it. But I've seen so many times the Trello board for the weekly sprint, then when you ask, so what is the status? Oh, no, hold on, it's not up to date. And people start moving things around because they don't keep it up to date. So the rule is, at any point when I look at this, it needs to be up to date. If something is wrong, I have to fix it. If I realize that there is no person assigned to this card, I need to figure that out and fix it myself, even if it's not my card, because it's crucial that this is always, always, always up to date. And then at some point, we had other activities that were not just involving our team, but they were cross-team, because we, as a design team, we have a few things that we do ourselves and we are responsible for, but we also consult other teams for their products. And so, being in charge of growth for a few things, we came up with the weekly growth hangout. Then again, it's weekly, but it's very, very strict. The first rule is, for the first 10 minutes of the hangout, we talk only about tests that have been completed. If there are no tests completed, this part is skipped. But there are tests that are completed. They only have 10 minutes to be discussed. The next 10 minutes are a discussion of future tests. Things that are going to be rolled out next week or in the near future, but these 10 minutes are just for things that are going to happen in the future. And that's it, because the last 10 minutes is for general discussion, but most of this is to discuss if this meeting this hangout still makes sense. In the very moment we realize that there is no point, we just change it or close it down. So the idea to having this is because we realized at some point that having 1, 2, 4, 10 tests currently running at any given moment on WordPress.com and other products, we were spending a lot of time discussing tests because we have a lot of tests running. And the only way to be extremely focused on what matters is to say the only time you have to talk about this is 10 minutes. So make it count. So just focus on what has the highest priority. There is no point in discussing a test that is running for 12 weeks if you're at week number 2. Of course, it's a very important test, otherwise it would not be running for so long. But there is no point in talking about this week. We're going to talk about it in 8 weeks when we are very close to the end, or when it's completed, which is even better. And the testing board looks like this. It's very similar to the weekly sprints, however, it doesn't have that speed. Tests are here, and this column is where people can contribute with ideas for tests for the future. Then tests are refined. They end up in this. When tests are ready, they go into running. And once every week, we just close the old ones, start the new ones. And when they need to be reported, they end up here because the test has been concluded and the results are being crunched. And then something else that we started doing this year, well, since I've been at Automattic, this has been done all the time. In the past, a little less, but going forward, it's going to happen even more, maybe. But something that I've done personally, so I wanted to show you this. Every 20 minutes, there is a new blog post or new article coming up on TechCrunch or many other news outlets where they actually tell you that your company sucks. You go there, and there is a new thing coming from Google Ventures that tells you, like, this is the way to run a company. The way you run your company is not good enough. Or there is another article that says, these are the most 5 important things when you hire somebody. And so you go and you read it, and you're like, the way I run my company is so wrong, because I never asked this guy if, you know. All of that serve only one purpose, which is to do page views for these news outlets and sell advertisement. For your company, all that shit is no good. So my advice, every time someone shows up and tells you how to run your own company or your own business or your consultancy business, even myself, just go like, and do something else. Because there is no point and there is no way that I can come here and tell you how to run your own company. I cannot just do it for a reason. It's your own company and should be run the way you think is appropriate based on your experience. What I can do is not to tell you how to do it, but just to give you a few ideas that maybe you can try. And this is one of them. So there was an article out, guess where? On TechCrunch, that was telling about this book called Sprint, printed by or produced by Google Venture or somehow connected with them. And this book explores a process of 5 days where a team of designers and engineers can create a prototype of a product starting from a few ideas. So it's 5 days from 0 to hero for a product. And as many other articles that I was going through, I was like, what is that? Come on. And then my team decided to buy the book and try it out. I was like, okay, let's try it out. And that it was the only way to realize that I was 100% wrong. And the book is pretty good. So if you have the chance, try that out. This is how it works. We bought a lot of stuff. So we're a design team, right? What do you want to do if you want to make designers happy? You buy paper, you buy stick. Oh, we were just walking by looking for people to interview with our little prototype that was a mobile. And these guys, they were selling tickets. So smart idea. And this is why they have me in the team, because they're all designers, but I am the one that is completely shameless. So I went straight to this guy and I said, wow, you have tickets for the concert. And the guy was like, of course I have, and started talking about the tickets. And I'm like, well, we're here for just a week, so we're looking for cool stuff to do, and the concert is a great idea, because, we are a team of designers, and we came up with this app. Oh, want to try the app? And he tried the app, because he was selling tickets, right? Wrong, because the app was done, Ron was checking what he was doing, I was convincing him, Dan was checking what he was doing, Mike was extremely embarrassed by my behavior, Bree was taking the picture, and then when the test was done, we were leaving and going to the next guy. And that's how we collected randomly a few, like let's say 2 to 3 tests that day, so to see if the app was working the way we expected. A few things were doing right, a few things were not doing right. But we tried that out. And what was the takeaway of the entire week, but also the takeaway that I want to give you to you today, is every time that someone tells you how to run your own business, you should not pay too much attention to details of what they say. Because usually what they're telling you is, well, I did this, I did that, you should do the same, that's it, I'm out. But the truth is, maybe there is something that is valuable in what they say. And the first thing that is valuable all the time is this. Make is better than talking about it. We spend a lot of time arguing if something is better than something else, if we should do this or we should do that. But truth is, the only way to know for sure is to make something. So if you're not sure that the next technology is for you, or that specific language is good enough for your solution. Find a little problem and try to solve it with it, and see if that is true. Don't just talk about it. Go more into doing things. The second one is try to learn something out of everything that you do. It doesn't matter if it's a small lesson or a big lesson, but try to take something good out of things. Don't focus on what it didn't work out, or why it's not going to work, or why it didn't work. Focus on, well, I didn't know this, now I know it. Even if it's small, it's good. And then you have to do things many, 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 many times. There is no way to go around this. The myth that we have that in technology, you start your company, you start your business, you're going to get exponential growth, and you do one shot, you do one trick shot, and you win, and you become rich. There's not a single example of this. Maybe one, Facebook, maybe, but not even that. I mean, there's a hard work behind, a lot of hard work. And most of the people that you see that it looks like it was easy for them, well, it was not. Sometimes it's luck, fine, fair enough. But most of the time, there's a lot of work and a lot of repetition and a lot of training and a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we tend not to appreciate that much. So growth looks like this. And people that, when they hire growth engineers or when they get into this topic, they think that things need to go up and right. Because, up and right is the way growth works. But truth is that growth goes more like this. It's very complicated. Sometimes you go up, but most of the time you just keep walking in circle, or you go back and you have to change things and you have to iterate a lot. And if you look at the path what it really looks like, it looks like a little bit like this, right? Exactly the same. So for the same reason, they didn't do like a straight path straight to the top. They had to go around the mountain to go up. The same happens. So again, with bikes. I started with bikes. I want to end up with bikes. When I took away the side wheels, I fell many times. And I didn't become a biker. But I know how to ride a bike. And if you think about that, it doesn't mean, bikes are bikes. And some people, they become professional bikers, and they do that for their living. Other people, they do that on Sunday because they like it. Other people, they use the bike to go to work. But the way to learn how to run a bike is the same for everybody. There is no way around it. You have to fall many times, you get bruised, you have to get scars, and then at some point you will be able to run a bike by yourself, and then you decide what to do with that. And for me, bikes are great things. 99% of the time my bike is just parked. That 1% is I ride when I'm up for, but it didn't become professional. And the same happens in business. The fact that companies like Automattic, and we have growth engineers. Google, they have growth departments, marketing departments, they have methodologies. They have books like that one that they come out. Facebook, they have a lot of advertisement about how the company works and the campus and their methodologies. It doesn't mean that what they have does not apply in what you do, even if you have a one-person shop, a little agency, a company that works in a complete different environment, a company that is fully distributed, half remote, very traditional, or you are in a complete different business. It doesn't matter. There is something that they do that maybe can be helpful for you as well. And the only advice that I want to give you is try to see something that can work and try it out. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure again being here. Thank you.
There is basically time for one or two questions. So
sure.
If you want to stand here.
I can do it, yeah. So we have time for a couple of questions. So only two. Who's first?
Oh, lovely. Stop.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for your great.
My pleasure.
I have one question regarding weekly sprint. We do pretty much the same thing in our company. The only difference is we don't choose only 10 minutes planning. So I'd like to ask why only 10 minutes? Because from our personal experience, we felt that it's better to have longer plannings, because if you plan more and plan in more details, then coding is just a straightforward thing. So can you give me some one or two good reasons for shorter meetings?
Sure, absolutely. Okay, I will yell. Can you hear me from the back? I mean, the camera is covered, but otherwise I get the mic.
If you want to move.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is that the 10 minutes planning happens only for the growth hangout, but the sprint hangout doesn't have that rule. However, usually it's shorter. So, why we decided to have a super short planning session? For a reason. If your board is up to date, if the people that they work in your team are reasonable people, the planning happens in the very moment that they put the task on the board, because everybody picks their own task the way they should be picked. And if they're wrong, they just change it. So the problem that I experienced in my career, even in other companies, when there were long sessions of planning, is that the long session of planning is not actually active planning, is a person that is pushing on other people his beliefs or her beliefs, and try to convince them that the way they want to do things is not the way he expects them to do it. So when you have people that they know the job they're doing, and they know what they can accomplish in a week, you just tell them, like, tell me what you're going to do next week. And they just tell you, and you just write it down, and that is it. And if it's wrong, we're going to fix over time. But every time there is a long discussion about the planning, it means that something is problematic in the way the work is processed. Then there is another example, or it's an example that they gave me many years ago. And it's like this. If there are 4 people, and the job is to dig a hole, right? And you see them talking, they have no idea what they're doing. Because if you have to dig a hole, there is only one way, which is you take your shovel and you just dig the hole. If they dig the hole and they don't talk to each other, it means they know exactly how big it needs to be, how deep it needs to be, where it needs to be. But as soon as they start talking with each other, they have no idea where it needs to be done, they have no idea how big, and they have no idea how deep. But if they know that, then they're not talking, they're working. Planning, I tend to put that in the same area.
Somebody else and that person disagrees with the solution, and that person is asleep right now.
How do we deal with disputes in a distributed environment? How many of you are active contributors of WordPress? Okay, why? Wow, they only sit on this side. How do we handle disputes at WordPress? Well, it's kind of, we talk a lot, we discuss a lot, we write a lot, we argue a lot, and then at some point, people get tired, people get nervous, people get sick of discussing, but the discussion can go on for a long time, can be very harsh, but at the very end, people tend to be on the same page. In a company like Automattic, the same principle applies very, very well. There are discussions that they take 0 seconds because people are already aligned. There are discussions that take months. There are discussions that take weeks. And there are discussions among 3 people and discussions among 150 people. And every time it happens exactly the same. It just changes the duration and the intensity, but the process is the same. People discuss. At some point, they start to align, and at some point, everybody's on the same page. Yes, you're going to still have people that are not fully aligned. It's fine. But this is extremely important to happen. Because if there is no discussion, people don't have the chance to express themselves. They don't have the chance to offer different point of views. You don't have the chance to hear many different options and hear many different opinions. But again, it's very important at the end to say, well, the discussion went on enough. This is the decision that has been made by the people in charge of that decision. And I still disagree, but I respect and support that decision. Of course, in an open source project, that disagreement can be harsh and can be can take people to quit, or can take people to step back, or can take people to not feel well. In a company, that part doesn't happen, because at the end, you know that the company, it's more important than just your own decision, and still, even in a flat hierarchy, a little bit of hierarchy is still there. So, super short answer, discussing a lot and arguing a lot is the answer to solve conflicts. Well, thank you very much. If you have any other question for me, you can find me around. Thank you.